Alexander Stewart and I were involved in doing a project in South Carolina as a part of the Palmetto Foundation. It was funded through the Palmetto Foundation. And the name of the project was Imagine South Carolina. And so this was pretty big in the sense that um, the idea of bringing all of South Carolina, the great state of South Carolina, if you will, in the United States, together for an AI summit. And I think that if you pay attention to what's going on in the United States now, you can get a sense of where South Carolina lived in our culture around diversity and inclusion. And this summit was to look at what was going on in South Carolina around its race disparities or its racial disparities, the locals. And so this whole thing became, what do the stakeholders look like in Imagine South Carolina? Who should be invited to the AI Summit? And so, you know, of course, the backstory in the program is that all of the folks who have a history of being stakeholders or leaders or advocates or community leaders certainly expected that they should be invited to the summit. And of course, the summit on race relations in South Carolina. So all of those folks were invited, but we also said to them, well, what would a diagonal slice look like of community members, community participants? And if we go with one of the things I know about and how I love appreciative inquiry is every voice counts, all voices in the room, every voice deserves to be heard. So how then do we get other voices in who have never been involved in this? So it kept going and kept going. So all of the folks came, and of course they expected a traditional summit where people came and presented papers and they answered questions and they sat in a row, and you know they had their water right next to them, and so you had a name tag in front of you. So we continued to coach the client host that that's not exactly what's going to happen. And so they said, okay, well, you know, it's worth it. We'll do it. We'll take the shot with you. And so we did. And so it was going okay. It wasn't going great. And so if you just think about group dynamics, everybody was being very polite to the two facilitators on the first day. So towards the end of the first day, I think folks had just had their enough around feeling like they had not been heard and feeling like it was the same thing. And what we often run into, if we don't pay attention to the full circle of AI, is people feeling like that it's a bait and switch, and that you've come and asked me some nice questions, but when I go back to my community, the Confederate flag is still at the State House, and the disparity between income is still in South Carolina. So there was a small uprising emerging, and Alex and I were looking at each other, and we were thinking, now we believe in this, and how can we impart that belief, that passion to this group of people who are from all parts of South Carolina. So it's white South Carolinians who were slave holders, Black South Carolinians who were enslaved, sharecroppers, farmers, small business, community advocates. And so they're all in there around race relations in South Carolina. So I remember saying, and for me, this really was the turning point. I remember saying, I said, Alex, I got one question. And she said, go for it. And so as we were leaving that room, I said, here's the thing I'd like for you to come back in and talk with us tomorrow. And I would like for you to answer this question overnight. And I said to them, I would like for you to come prepared to tell a story or to share the vision that you have for the South Carolina of your heart. Game changer. Absolute game changer. They came back the next morning, and it was an amazingly different crowd when they started talking about the South Carolina of their heart. And they all recognized that they were deeply rooted in South Carolina. They had deep roots in South Carolina, and they had great hopes and wishes for the South Carolina of the future. But they were, you know, they were in very different places around where they were at that moment. They came to do battle. The upshot of all of this is they took the Confederate flag down from in front of the State House, and it stayed down for at least two governors before they put it back up, and then we're where we are now. But and so my hope is to send that information back to Mother Emanuel and hope that they can start again from the South Carolina of their heart.